What's going on, everybody? My name is Zach Hartley and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to summarize for you and break down and highlight all of the important parts of the Drone Delivery Canada 2022 financial year end. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, if you're new to this company and you haven't seen them before, or you're just interested in getting kind of an overview, this isn't the video for you. Check out my channel. I've done a bunch of videos on this company, including a breakdown of last year's financials. But let's dive into it right now and start with the balance sheet. This balance sheet is super important. As you can see right now, they have $15.3 million worth of cash and cash equivalents. And that is a lot of money, but relative to where they were at the same time last year, it is down from $27.6 million. So that is something that is going to be really important when we get to the income statement so that we can understand how much runway this company has left and when they may need to raise more money in the future. Now, they have a bunch of assets here, which is really nice. They've got lots of equipment and some patents, a total asset base of just under $20 million, but really about $15.3 million worth of cash. When it comes to the liabilities, not a ton of liabilities, about $1 million just worth of lease obligations and other payables. But it's this number here, that deferred revenue, coming in at about $103,000. This deferred revenue represents contracts that the company has secured but has not rendered the services yet for. In other words, they haven't flown the drone flights or they haven't set up yet, but they have secured that contract, and so that revenue is not realized. It is just deferred, but it is held on the liability sheet. The reason I don't like this number is because it feels like it keeps going down and down and down. It used to be in the $200,000 and $300,000 and $400,000. Now it's at $100,000. And basically what it means is that pipeline of future jobs that the company has lined up is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is not a good sign. On top of that, they also have an $89 million deficit, which basically represents how much money the company has spent in order to get to the point where they're at today. Now, if you're ever looking at a company for the first time, I always recommend looking at the balance sheet, because just like the exercise that we just went through, it kind of helps you understand how the company got to where they're at today. And then when we switch over to the income statement here, this is a snapshot of exactly how they're doing over a certain period of time. For us, it is going to be the 2022 calendar year. So we have that balance sheet that tells us how we got to where we're at today. And today we are at $826,000 in revenue in the year of 2022, but we are at $14.9 million in operating expenses. And so we are over 15 times the amount of revenue that we have in operating expenses, which is a little bit worrisome. It is nice that the revenue has gone up here, but we are spending a lot of money to bring in that $826,000 in revenue. And if you just do some simple math, this is not the right calculation, but it's a close calculation. If you just look at this and you say, okay, the company is spending $14.9 million in expenses per year. They have about $15.3 million in cash in the bank. They have roughly a 1-year runway. They can probably extend that out to 1.5, maybe 2 years if they really needed to. But this is just a really simple and crude way to try and figure that runway out without looking at the cash flow statement. And so when we look at the income statement, the company's losing money. They're burning $14 to $15 million per year. They're bringing in less than $1 million in revenue this year, or in 2022, I should say. But that number is up from 2021, which is it's a good sign, I guess, that it's up. Now, when it comes to the drones and the actual product development behind the company, this is where I feel like they have been lacking and things have been really slow. There's a lot of other drone companies around the world that are making a whole lot of progress and building some really cool technology, and it just feels like Drone Delivery Canada, in my opinion, from what is available publicly, doesn't feel like we're moving very fast. They're still developing the Condor. They do expect it. They didn't even give a hard date. Actually, in this snapshot here, or in the management discussion analysis, they don't say that the Condor is going to be ready in 2023, which is a little bit disappointing. So it could be until 2024 that it's ready, but hopefully we see commercialization and at least the first or second customer this year, or at least an announcement about it. The Canary is also seeing some progress here. It looks like they're testing a parachute. That seems like kind of the main technology that they are working on here. This seems almost a little bit disappointing to me, because when I went to the facility and I actually toured their facility like 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, they were working on this back then. So it has taken them a long time to get this parachute running, and there are other companies around the world that have been doing this for a while. So parachute is not like the latest and greatest technology in the drone world. So it's a little bit disappointing that it's taken this long, but I'm not an engineer. I don't know the technicals behind it, so probably not in an educated place to comment on that. It's just my uneducated, sitting at my computer opinion. Now, one thing that I can comment on though is simple math. Here is a snapshot from the press release that I want to say they put out this morning or yesterday, and it kind of gives us some numbers here. So they flew 3,000 flights in 2022 and a distance of over 7,000 kilometers. Now the company brought in $826,000 in revenue. If you divide that by the 3,000 flights, that means they're doing $275 per flight. That's how much revenue the company is bringing in per flight on average that they are doing. 826,000 in revenue in the year divided by 3,000 flights. Very, very simple. On top of that, we have 7,000 kilometers that have been traveled over those 3,000 flights. If you do the simple math there, it's 2.3 kilometers per flight. Now, when you divide the price per flight divided by the distance per flight, it works out to roughly $120 per kilometer. So if you want to hire Drone Delivery Canada to transport your products and your stuff, you're going to end up paying on average, based on the numbers that are available here, $120 per kilometer. And I think about that number and I think to myself, wow, that is high. That is an expensive trip to get product from X to Y. And by the time you load up the drone, you go through the safety procedures, you get the product to the drone takeoff landing, the drone flies, and then you get to the landing spot for the drone, and then you get it back to where it needs to be. I don't know if $120 per kilometer for an average flight of 2.3 kilometers is worth it. Like an Uber is pretty quick. You gotta, let's say that this Uber ride would cost, or a taxi ride or a transport ride would cost $10 or maybe $20. Is it 5 times better to go by drone, and is it worth paying that amount? I don't know, and it depends on the use case, obviously, and there's a huge spectrum of high urgency and low urgency. But the unit economics in my head aren't as good as I thought they would be. And then when you look at the budget for the company, this is just a snapshot from the management discussion and analysis. They were slightly over budget by $7,500,000. Scaling of management was under budget right here. Product development and commercialization was over budget. Commercial testing was over budget by over 100%. International and domestic marketing was down. That is good. I think that's the right place. Steve Majerius seems like he was cutting back on marketing. And international market penetration was also under budget. They really spent the extra money on the commercial testing, which in my mind is okay because they need to ramp that up, but also we haven't seen a whole lot of progress. Now, when it comes to quarterly revenue, this in my mind is really, really important because they're operating on like 6 and 12 month contracts. And so ideally we want to see quarterly revenue just continue to increase, and that's not what we're seeing. Quarterly revenue is down by $10,000 in the last quarter of 2022. And it has been, it was steady growth from 2021 September all the way through, steady growth up to 247. And then in the last quarter, it dropped by $10,000, or let's just call it 4%. So not a huge drop off, not a huge concern, but we're not seeing that steady quarter over quarter growth. That would be really nice. And this is probably to be expected because of that deferred revenue number decreasing that I mentioned at the beginning when we looked at the balance sheet. Now, that is, that's where we're at with regards to revenue. Now, with regards to the stock chart, this is also interesting. As you can see, we're in a bearish trend. We had a huge run up from 21 cents to 54 cents on almost no news. I have no idea what happened here. The volume shot up. I want to say a couple insiders were buying. I really don't know what happened here, but we doubled. We went up by like 250% right here, which is absolutely crazy, or 150%. And then ever since then, we've been selling back off. We are up 11.5% though on the news today, the press release that went out. They don't announce when they put out their financials. Like I think the financials went out yesterday or the day before, and then they put out the press release today. So just kind of a weird thing. And then the graphics in the documents were so bad that they were so pixelated you couldn't even see the real numbers. So that was a little bit disappointing. But here are my thoughts. Honestly, actually my thoughts are a little bit disappointing. Number one, revenue is up year over year, but it is down compared to last quarter, and it is not growing super quickly, which is fairly disappointing. If you look at this, we did $194,000 in a quarter back in 2021. We're only doing $237 at the end of 2022. Not phenomenal growth for a startup that has $89 million deficit. A little bit disappointing there. No. Secondly, they have roughly, and this is my opinion, don't sue me if you work at Drone Delivery Canada, because I am an uneducated retail trader. I just do simple math, but you have roughly 1 year of runway, which means you're probably going to need to fundraise in the next 6 months, which means we're probably going to see either a bunch of press releases coming out or an announcement that they have struck a deal in behind the scenes. The developments feel a little bit slowed, and deferred revenue is down, at least as far as I'm aware, which is a little bit disappointing. And then the idea in the back of my head is like, this is, I believe, or at least as far as I'm aware, the first time that we've got public information about the number of kilometers flown and the number of flights completed in a year. These unit economics were not as good as I had hoped that they would be, especially for drone transportation. And so because of the higher cost per kilometer, I think it limits the applications where this technology is applicable. As this number comes down, I think it opens up more applications. But it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out over the next year. I can tell you it's going to be a very exciting year for Drone Delivery Canada and the new CEO, Steve. I did interview him. If you want to check that out, I spoke to him a couple of months. We made a full podcast and kind of interview video here on the YouTube channel. So definitely check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about the guy and get a brief overview of the company. But if you want to see what I am buying, my trades, my analysis, and my opinion on a regular day-to-day basis, you can check out my Discord chat. You can also ask me anything you want in there, and I reply on pretty much a daily basis. I'm trying to build a community of traders to share their thoughts, their research, their analysis, and their ideas. It is $10 per month for access to the chat. If you'd like to sign up, the link is down below. And thank you so much for watching till the end. I sincerely appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one. Good luck trading, good luck investing, and we'll talk to you soon.